Welcome to the Pasho Perspective, a place where I share my perspective on everything in the space between life and death. I'm your host, Pasho. Well, my Pachos Chachos, it has been a long time and I apologize, but as you know, life always finds a way to interrupt itself. And I have been spending oodles of time with my family, enjoying them up. I know that you all understand priorities are a must, but now I'm ready for Season 7, Episode 74, titled The Party of Death. Well, based on that title, I think you can safely assume, my chachos, that I'm going to be talking about the Democratic Party and how, for some reason or another, they are enamored with death. For example, let's start with the infanticidal elephant in the room, abortion. According to the CDC, last year in 2023, 65 million babies have died since 1973. And last year, according to CNN, it was up 10% from 2020. Now, as I've always mentioned in my other podcasts, there is no way that you can really show that you care about life if you don't value it at conception. And so, this whole idea of clump of cells, this whole idea of the magical Pikachu, where first it's a stapler in your womb, but only because it travels through that mysterious tunnel does a child then form, right? How ridiculous is that? I saw a meme last week that basically said, to put things into perspective, that a human being has one head, 10 toes, 10 fingers, one heartbeat, one DNA. When a woman is pregnant, there are two babies. If she's having twins, but there are two kids. There are two humans, right? There are two heads. There are 20 toes now, 10 from the mother, 10 from the baby, 20 fingers, two DNAs, right? So my body, my choice doesn't make any sense when the baby has its own body, its own DNA, its own blood type, for goodness sakes. We average here in the United States over 1 million babies a year. And actually, since the end of Roe versus Wade, as I mentioned before, CNN has even admitted that abortions have gone up 10%. You would think if we were so worried about Roe versus Wade affecting women being able to get abortions, that the number would have gone down. And ironically, it is up by 10%. And as you know, CNN is no conservative-leaning journalism or network. We can edit that out, right? Network. There's a clear one. We also have the awful pullout of Afghanistan from Joe Biden, where 13 Marines were killed because of his incompetence. How do we lose 13 Marines? How do we lose over $60 billion worth of military-grade technology like Black Hawks, like F-15s, machine guns, night vision goggles, Kevlar, and all the ammo to fill it up with, anti-air warcraft stuff? How did we leave it to a bunch of illiterate, hashish-smoking, cave-dwelling terrorists against the greatest army that has ever existed in the world? It is amazing. But what I feel is more amazing is the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris refuse to even say the names of the 13 Marines. And so, my Pachos Chachos, I hope you can indulge me here, but I am going to name them because they deserve to be honored. First, we have Sergeant Nicole L.G. We have Sergeant Johnny Rosario Pichardo. We have Staff Sergeant Darren T. Hoover, Staff Sergeant Ryan C. Naus, Captain Dagan W. Page, Corporal Dagan W. Page, Corporal Hunter Lopez, Corporal Humberto A. Sanchez, Lance Corporal Jared Schmidt, Lance Corporal David Espinoza, Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoi, and Navy Corpsman Maxton W. Soviak. Those people deserve our respect and our honor. They deserve to come home. And they didn't because, again, the Democrats are the party of death. Joe Biden didn't care that all of his generals begged him to make his 2-week plan a 6-month plan where they could evacuate all people. And now who knows how many are dying in Afghanistan because we have abandoned them there and they are being hunted like wild dogs for helping us, for taking the risk. Their families are in jeopardy. They are the party of death. Next, of course, I have to talk about school shootings, as I have mentioned in previous episodes, because the DNC refuses to protect our children. They will put guards next to our money, but they don't want anyone with a gun protecting our children. The numbers, although I don't have them with me right now, are up from 2019. No surprise, as you are aware. We have 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And actually, based on what I've read today, there's 3 because in Long Island at a rally, they saw a car with explosives near where Donald Trump was going to speak. Luckily, the Secret Service was able to capture that. But 2 definite attempts to assassinate our president because, again, of the wild verbiage that they use, calling him Hitler, calling him a threat to democracy. It's those kinds of words that make psychopaths like Ryan Routh do the things that they were attempting to do. Suicide is also on the rise. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, number of suicides have increased by approximately 4% from 2020 to 2021. Even after 2 years of consecutive decline under President Trump, all of a sudden, of course, you put a feckless leader, and that's what we get. More people becoming hopeless, more people becoming depressed, more people wanting to take their lives. October of last year had the greatest percentage difference in year-over-year numbers, with suicides 11% higher in 2021 than the same month in 2020. Males are 4% higher, which is a rate of suicide increase of 3%. And women, the total number of suicides increased by 2% as well from 2020 to 2021. I would assume most of them are liberals because, as most of the studies out there have shown, people who are conservative, people who value God, who have purpose, don't really think of suicide that often. Then, Democrats are also the party of euthanasia. Just like our dunce hat country, Canada, that sits on top of us with their MAID Act, where they have state-funded euthanasia, California, Oregon are also following suit. And as you should know, all the toxicity that starts in California eventually, if left unchecked, makes its way throughout the rest of the country. If you look at New York City, Chicago, Detroit, and other major cities that are run by Democrat governors and mayors, you have criminals being kept out of jail, which allows them to do repeat violent offenses. Again, similar to the Pareto distribution I talked about in previous episodes, where you can assume 95% of the crime is committed by 5% of the criminals because we don't let them rot in prison like they should. Next, with our party of death, is what I like to refer to as the Clinton Suicide Squad, copyright patent pending, where Joan Rivers was murdered after saying, when asked by a journalist what she thought about having a gay president, and she said, we already had one, in reference to Obama and his partner Mike. And then she died a week after that comment. Coincidence? I think not. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Watch Charlie Kirk. He tries to kill himself using all of the materials that a suicide prison cell would have. And even he, as big as he was, wasn't able to muster enough pressure around his neck to asphyxiate himself to death. So there's no way that this old, decrepit, worn out, and probably exhausted Mr. Epstein could have killed himself. And then, let's also remember that 3 hours worth of video on his cell during the time he committed suicide have been lost. My guess is deleted. The 2 guards who were supposed to alternate and watch his cell because he was on suicide watch, for some reason, both of them were told to take lunch at the same time. Because he was on suicide watch, the practice is to have a room cellmate. So in case he tries to do something, that cellmate will scream out and draw attention. And yet, ironically, for some reason on that day, he was removed from the cell. It doesn't take a genius to know that Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. Obviously, when President Trump is made president, if you, my Pachos, Chachos, and I have our way, he will release the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs so we can see who all those disgusting pedophile, pervert, rapist, pieces of garbage human beings, mostly I would assume Democrats, but there's some rhinos in there too, are going to come out, and that's why they're trying to kill him, right? I mean, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. They are not going to stop. Don't think 2 attempts, don't think 3 attempts is going to be enough. They are going to do everything they can to prevent this man from getting into power because they don't want to lose it. And if we know how dirty they are, like P. Diddy, then obviously the respect, the love, the fame, the glory, all becomes tarnished, and all for them will be lost. Next, for the party of death is the mutilating and sterilizing of children. Only the Democrats would think it's a good idea to chop off healthy breasts on young girls, to chop off perfectly functional penises off of boys because they think they're girls. Mutilation and sterilization may not be death, but sterilization is the death of that family tree. The roots of that child will no longer grow. The branches will no longer bear fruit. Grandma's dimple disappears. Your aunt's infectious laughter will never be seen again. The constellation of beauty marks on their cheeks will no longer be shared with anyone. And so in that way, my Pachos, Chachos, it is a death. It is a death of that family tree. And that is certainly something that should be mourned and grieved, especially if they are descendants of slaves, as some would say. That is not the dream of a slave, to have his grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren murdering his kin, all in the name of convenience, all in the name of becoming some corporate professional who will replace you as soon as you die, replace you if you're too sick to work. You know what they forget to tell young children? Your children won't forget you. Your children won't replace you. Your children, should you get sick, God forbid, will hold your hand and let you go into the light. Not alone, not afraid, but with love. And of course, the Democrats hate everything about that. Next, talking about children, we also have the largest government-funded child sex trafficking ring in history because of our open border policy. Even the Border Patrol has said that they've recognized that they have lost over 320,000 minor illegals into our country. And it doesn't take a genius, my Pachos, Chachos, to understand where they went and what happened to them. I recommend watching Angel Studios' excellent movie, The Sound of Freedom, and you'll get a better idea as to what exactly is going on. Remember, the drug cartels of Mexico are no longer selling drugs. You can sell cocaine, but you can only do a line of cocaine once. But a young child could be done several times a day, several times a week, several times a month, several times a year, until they run away or they kill themselves. It's terrible. I would talk about what they do to infant babies and how they impregnate some of their young children so that they have infant babies. But I don't want to sicken you, my Chachos, but just think about what is the natural reaction of an infant. It is to suckle and then fill in a pervert, pedo, disgusting, garbage human being and what they would do to that until death, the party of death. For humor, and please humor me here, we also have cats, dogs, and geese. Turns out the city manager has actually gone on video saying that he has indeed heard several reports of lost domesticated animals because of migrants, we'll leave their country out, but migrants who have illegally been placed into their city. But don't get lost in those lies, guys. It's not about cats and dogs and geese. The purpose of it all is displacement, to make it so uncomfortable for Springfield, Ohio, that the people, the American citizens, will move out, and guess who stays behind? And because they are given stipends for school, for hotels, for utilities, for cars, guess who they're going to vote for? Because when you give people the opportunity to continue voting for welfare over everything else, even if they are adamantly, religiously against every other policy, they will still vote for the Democratic Party because of the promise of free money, which you know, my Pachos Chachos, is never free. It comes from our work, our sweat, our blood, and our tears. The last couple of things I want to talk about is the liberal media, the human centipede that is our liberal media, spooning crap to all the people who are so willing and voluntarily eating of their anuses. It is a death to objective reporting. I used to believe that when I heard a story, they were giving me both sides so that I could make a good decision. But as we have become well aware of during this administration, they are nothing more than a pundit for the Democratic Party, who funds them, who owns them, and who tells those talking heads who do nothing more than read a script. They don't think, they don't research, they don't do any journalism. They read like talking heads on a television, whatever their masters tell them to read. Stop eating their crap and start listening to the Pacho Perspective. There's a Gallup poll that was released this year where the distrust of the American citizens to the media is only 2 points higher than the lowest poll ever recorded. Only 7% say that they have a great deal of trust in the media. 38% say they have no trust at all. 28% said they don't have much trust. 27% say they have a fair amount. Of course, if you think about it, Republicans, we don't trust them. 14% say we trust them either a little or a lot. Independents only trust the media 27% at a little or a lot. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, the party of death, registered Democrats, 70% say that they trust the media a little or a lot, which obviously makes a lot of sense since their diet is nothing more than spooning from Cornholio's corn cones. Lastly, I also want to talk about then the death of the American culture, which is what all of this amounts to. As long as we are aborting our babies, committing suicide, participating in government-funded euthanasia, as long as we are killing ourselves in violent crimes, as long as the Clinton Suicide Squad is still able to do what they do, as long as we're mutilating and sterilizing children, as long as we're selling them into sex trafficking where they can no longer see themselves or look at themselves in the mirror, so they kill themselves, our animals, our cats, our dogs, our geese, oh my, all of that stuff is an attempt to erase the American culture to become more global. Look at Europe. Europe is already dead. Italy, Italians are becoming minorities because of the influx of migration. French people are becoming the minority in their own country because of the influx of immigration. The English are becoming a minority on their island because of the influx of immigration. It only is a matter of time before our country is so inundated that we, the American people, are going to become the minority. And as I've said before, you cannot mix oil and water. These immigrants are not like the immigrants of our parents and our grandparents who came here because they couldn't wait to be American. They couldn't wait to put Old Glory on their chest. They couldn't wait to have their first barbecue on the 4th of July. They couldn't wait to have a Thanksgiving dinner, to celebrate Christmas, to enjoy all of the freedoms and liberties that we have. They wanted to be part of us. These people do not, and they are not expected by this administration to assimilate. Actually, the purpose is not to assimilate. It is to make it so uncomfortable for the American people that we move from red districts and turn them into blue. And if they do that enough times in every state, you can take a red state and make it purple. And eventually the end goal is to turn that purple state into blue. We must stop this, my Pachos Chachos. We are the party of life. And if we really care about life, the life of our children, our lives, and the security and financial securities that we have been given, we need to stand up and we need to let our voices be heard that Kamala is not a turning of the page, because the Democrat plan is only made up of one page. What is there to turn? She is the vice president. If you want the same old, Kamala Harris is the same old. If you truly want change, at least change where we had a great economy, low unemployment, peace in the world, we know we need to go with the Don. And so I hope, my Pachos Chachos, that you don't forget in November to vote. Vote early if you can. Do the mail-in voting. If they're going to allow it, then we need to flood the boxes with our votes so that no matter how hard they cheat, and you know they're going to cheat, we will make it so overwhelming that even despite their cheating, we will win. We will win back our country, and we will bring life back to our world. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much for sharing your time. As always, God bless, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.